Hello. Okay, welcome to my third and final installment in my Halloween special series for this year. I've been reviewing the Terrifier movies. So yeah, with my third and final installment is going to be my review of Terrifier 3 that I caught at the cinema last Thursday. Halloween, a perfect time to catch this movie. And yeah, I've really enjoyed visiting these movies for the first time. I've never seen the first or second movie when they were first released. I've only caught them in the last couple of weeks. And if you've watched those reviews, you know that I enjoyed them quite a bit. So yeah, we've got Terrifier 3 here, once again directed and written by Damien, Leone. And the events of Terrifier 3 are set during the lead up to Christmas. And the story follows Sienna Shaw as she attempts to rebuild her life. At the same time, Art the Clown is pursuing her alongside his new accomplice, a possessed Victoria Hayes. And so I just want to start off with saying, again, one of the major issues that I had with that first movie, and it's also an issue that the director and writer Damien Leone also had with that first movie, which was the underdeveloped characters. It's corrected here with the third movie, and he's been making these improvements with each installment. And you've got a character like Victoria Hayes, which was incredibly underdeveloped. I just couldn't really care for, and here I felt like he's found a way to really sort of naturally fit her character into this story, which, don't get me wrong, it's a very thin plot, but it works. I just love how he gave this character the opportunity to evolve and grow and have a purpose within the story, because it was one of my major issues with that first movie. And it's the continuation and sort of the evolution of the character of Victoria Hayes, as well as Sienna Shaw, that sort of really bring to life sort of those deeper themes that I feel like Damien Leone is sort of exploring, but not really they don't really fully come to life, but they are there. And one of those being trauma and sort of how people what people go through sort of emotionally when they experience the horrors like they have here within these movies, which are very horrific. And so those themes are there, but don't get me wrong, these are not the most, emotionally complex horror movies you'll ever see. But the attempt is there to sort of bring these very human themes and emotions alive, and it's through these characters of Sienna Shaw and Victoria Hayes, which again really sort of helps add sort of the soul and heart to these movies that first one really missed. So I really want to talk about that opening here. It's an incredibly effective and creepy opening. I just love how they use sort of the innocence and magic of Christmas to really sort of heighten and instill sort of the horror and disturbing sort of nature of what occurs within this moment. If you've seen the Terrifier movies, you can probably imagine what happens. But it's all brought to life as well, and this is where it really sort of took me back to the original movie. It's all brought to life beautifully with how the camera is used and sort of how we are witnessing this through the eyes of a child, as well as the lighting, the cinematography, just how everything about this moment is crafted and brought to life, kind of really sort of helped instill that unnervingness and creepiness and just, yeah, like I said, the disturbing sort of nature of what does happen within this moment, because, again, it's one of those moments where I just couldn't believe they go in there. And it's also the result of the very smart editing, again, just like with the previous two movies, where within these moments it stops them from falling into sort of just glorifying the violence and instead intensifying the horror. And yeah, just everything about the opening scene within this movie, just tapping into that kind of childhood nostalgia of Christmas, and just how it's shot through sort of the shadows, the lighting, and just the grain, and sort of that kind of look of the frame, the picture within the frame. Everything about it just gave that kind of sensation of unnervingness and creepiness, and it's disturbing, but it's also bonkers, and it's a thrill ride. It feels like a very fun thrill ride because it's evoking all those right emotions, and I just feel like how they balance it all out with the humour as well. I just thought it's perfectly done. And here with Terrifier 3, Damien Leone just dials it up again a few notches when it comes to the violence and the gore, and just sort of the creativity and so the imagination that goes on behind these kills and within these moments. I mean, for example, another sort of standout moment for me with Terrifier 3 was the shower scene. For those of you that have seen the movie will obviously know what I'm referring to, but you've only got to say shower scene in a horror movie like this and you know what to expect. And this is what I'm sort of trying to get at. You've seen moments like this 100 times before in horror films. But what Damien Leone achieves is something that feels different, and sort of it's got this energy behind it that kind of just really sucks you into the moment, and it becomes a sort of a blood pumping sort of adrenaline filled moment that kind of really puts you through the emotions. And even though it's familiar and it's a moment that is very predictable, it's down to how these moments are filmed, like the shower scene, for example, within Terrifier 3. Like, I absolutely adored how he would position the camera inside the shower and just sort of how that entire scene played out. It had this kind of energy to it that kind of really just added to the entire moment. Like, it got the blood pumping, it was adrenaline fueled horror, and it's all down to how these scenes are played out in what is really on paper. When it's on paper, you've just got another sort of slasher sex scene in a shower that we've seen 100 times before, but it's just how these moments are brought to life with that energy. It just sort of really kind of immersed me into the moment and got the blood pumping. Like, I can't say I really cared for the characters, but it's just, again, how the moment is constructed. And then you'll always get that kind of, it's almost like a relief, really, at the end of these moments, where it's a comedic relief, where you'll have Art the Clown doing something silly and stupid. And again, it sort of goes back to how these experiences feel. They are like roller coaster rides. These are thrill park amusement rides, but in the best way possible. I mean that in the most positive way possible, because it's evoking all the right emotions. Movies like this are supposed to put you on these rides where you feel sort of the horror, and then it's kind of like, as our horror lifts, you kind of get that kind of sigh of relief, and that comes in the form of sort of the comedic aspect of the character of Art the Clown and just within its story. And I just have to touch on the practical effects here again that's on display. They're absolutely amazing. They're beautiful, but in a grotesque way. Just again, the creativity and the imagination, but just how the practical effects are brought to life, the amount of detail, and along with the very smart editing. There's not one moment where you've got a kill scene going on within this film where I couldn't just look at the screen. I had to turn away because of how effective the practical effects are within these movies, or within this movie. And it's just testament to sort of how effective and how well done the practical effects are here, and just the makeup and special effects in general. I've always said it, when it comes to horror, you should only ever use practical. Use CGI where you really have to, but yeah, these are good examples. The Terrifier movies are good examples of how to move forward with horror. We don't need CGI blood splatter all the time, because it does take away from the horror. Though, that being said, I do feel like these movies are dangerously close to becoming perhaps a little too repetitive, and might be for some people already, but for me personally, they're not quite there yet, because I'm having such a great time. I just love the imagination and sort of that kind of the creativity that's going on behind the scenes and bringing this experience to life. I just adore how these movies are constructed and crafted. And yeah, you've got that nostalgia and homage to retro Grindhouse horror movies, but there's also an energy and freshness behind how these movies are crafted. And at the moment, it's stopping them, for me anyway, from personally falling into, oh, here we go again. It's that moment. And again, with Terrifier 3, you have that supernatural element present within the story, where I feel like, once again, Damien Leone beautifully sort of balances it out, because I feel like with that supernatural element it could easily become too silly or just too over the top, and I feel like with horror movies to sort of remain effective when it comes to delivering the horror with those supernatural elements, it needs to sort of have its feet remained rooted in sort of some degree of reality for it to really sort of keep that effectiveness. And I just feel like Damien Leone balances out the more supernatural aspects of the story beautifully. For me, Terrifier 2 was sort of more Stranger Things and Stephen King, and I feel like here with Terrifier 3, he sort of pulls back a little when it comes to that supernatural element, but it was more of a sort of like a possession movie, and I just really dug it, and I kind of really dug those kind of hints at sort of the bigger picture of what's going on with these characters and sort of the journeys they're on. It's all hinted at, and I think it was just enough to sort of really keep my appetite, you know, going for further installments within the Terrifier series, because like I said, these are becoming dangerously close to just being repetitive, but I feel like it's those hints at a much bigger story going on, and especially when it comes to that supernatural aspect, which I'm really excited and I'm hoping he sort of really delves into more with future Terrifier movies. It just keeps me excited and looking forward to future installments within the Terrifier franchise. Like I said, I just love the imagination and creativity that goes on behind bringing these movies to life, and I just love those hints that we are getting at a much sort of bigger story and a much richer story going on behind the scenes, which I feel like now Damien Leone, if he's going to make a fourth movie, really needs to delve deeper into. And I feel like, okay, from what we witnessed here with Terrifier 3 in those brief moments, it's kind of got like an Evil Dead, Army of Darkness vibe to it, which I really dug. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he brings to us with future installments, but I do feel like it needs to really explore more of what he's hinting at, to stop it sort of from just falling into that kind of like, oh, here we go again, you know, we've been here kind of before. And I just want to go back to our characters for a moment and performances. So we've got Laurent LaRiva returning as our main Sienna Shaw, who was first established within that second movie, and we finally got a character that we could care for, that I could root for, that I could emotionally get wrapped up with her story. Now don't get me wrong, it's not the deepest thing ever, but it's a character that has this emotional weight to it, and it's not because of the writing, but it's because of how Laurent LaRiva brings this character to life. And yeah, I feel with Terrifier 3, like I liked her in Terrifier 2, but she gives us a much stronger and committed performance here, I felt. And you could sort of sense the passion there in sort of how she was bringing this character to life, which kind of really sort of got me even more emotionally attached to the character. And it's all as a result of her performance. And what's lacking within the writing, within the screenplay, is made up for in how these moments are brought to life. For example, like the performances by Laurent LaRiva. And that sort of kind of goes back to it, sort of these other aspects that I've been touching on. For example, the deeper themes and sort of what it is that Damien Leone is attempting to create when it comes to a much larger mythology, and sort of what it is that's going on sort of behind the scenes, and sort of what is hinted at. Basically, it's kind of all there, but it never really truly fully comes to life, and that just seems to be a reoccurring theme. But I really dug the performance from Laurent LaRiva here. There's this emotion and weight there that the story really needs for it to have a purpose, for it to sort of have a reason to exist, really. And to just touch on another sort of very kind of minor gripe that I had with Terrifier 3 that I had more with Terrifier 2, and that is, maybe there are certain moments within this movie that could have been trimmed just a little to maintain the urgency and momentum of the horror. But again, I just loved that old-fashioned retro approach on lingering on certain moments and characters. It does sometimes feel like they're stretching what is a very thin story to breaking point, but I just can't help but just have so much fun with these movies, with these experiences, and I just admire them from a technical perspective. So yeah, They are my thoughts on Terrifier 3. It's a movie that does exactly what it needs to do. It was the perfect movie to watch on Halloween. I had so much fun. It was gross. It was disturbing. It was unnerving. There are moments that actually made me have to turn my head away from the screen. And as I've said many times before, for a film to do that to me, who has been desensitized to violence within cinema, you know, it's a massive achievement. And it just evokes all the right emotions. This was everything that you would want a movie like this to be. You've got characters that you could care for. Yeah, it's not the deepest thing ever, but it does exactly what it needs to. What Damien Leone is attempting to do here, where, you know, it's capturing that essence of those retro Grindhouse B-movie horrors that you would watch on VHS. Like, this movie would transport me back to being a kid again, watching those films that made me fall in love with cinema, and you could just sense the creativity, the imagination and passion there. I strongly believe that these big studios really need to sit down, watch and study these movies and take notes, because what these movies have, what the Terrifier movies have, is what is severely lacking in modern horror. Not all modern horror. Like, we've had some real gems when it comes to horror movies in recent years. At the moment, we're actually going through a very good time when it comes to horror movies, but there's that kind of grit that's missing, that kind of really truly makes horror effective and get under the skin, and to give you that experience that it is putting you through all the emotions. And that is something that Damien Leone is achieving here. Even though these movies do suffer a little bit when it comes to the writing and the screenplay, it's that passion behind crafting the movies, and sort of the passion in bringing these characters to life and sort of giving us this certain type of experience that we don't really get anymore, is what makes these movies work, and I fucking love it. Terrifier 3 is a great time. Please check it out, especially if you're easily offended or grossed out. Then do check it out, because this is what the movie going experience is all about. It's supposed to make you feel, you know, those feelings of, oh, that's just wrong, or like, oh my god, I can't believe they're going there. You know, that's what the movie going experience is all about. You know, these movies are there to offend you, and it does that beautifully. So yeah, I highly recommend Terrifier 3. It's enough of rambling on from me now, and I will be giving Terrifier 3 a 7.5 out of 10. So yeah, they're my thoughts on Terrifier 3. I had a really good time sharing with you my thoughts on this movie, because I did have such a good time with it. I really enjoyed it, and I do highly recommend it. But what do you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you agree with anything I've said, or disagree with anything I've said? Then let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. And just another big thank you to all of those that have connected with the channel, whether it be liking or disliking and subscribing. It means an awful lot. I will always be, and I know I say this in every video now, but I will always be overwhelmed by how many of you do want to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on about film and TV. But it's something that I really enjoy doing, is sharing my passion of film with like-minded people. I'm hoping to hit 500 subscribers by the end of the year. It's a little goal I set myself. For me, it is just a conduit really, for me to really just share that passion that I do have with like-minded people who do actually just want to follow some random Welsh geek rambling on about film and TV and pronounce words in cringy ways. But here we are. That's me, and yeah, another big thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be catching you guys soon.